Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Coffee Break. I'm Alistair Mackenzie, and this week we're just going to have a short hangout. I had been hoping to do something about basically a cycling and walking activity campaign in Europe, but that hasn't come across, and we're going to do that next week. So today it's going to be a short one with just Malcolm and I talking about this morning's publication of Sir Howard Davies's Airports Commission report into the new runway at in the southeast, which airport he's picked, and it looks like he's gone pretty firmly, I think, Malcolm, for Heathrow, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's a very, very long report. In fact, they issued it at 5 o'clock this morning. They then locked us in a room till 7 o'clock, at which point Radio 4 Live was able to report on it, and of course the television people. So it's a difficult one to digest when you go into it. But he's ruled out Gatwick as a priority. He seems to have ruled out the Heathrow hub idea. I haven't looked at it in detail, so I don't know why he's ruled out Heathrow hub, because I personally think that was the better of the two Heathrow plans. And it may well be that the Prime Minister says, well, hang on a minute, I don't really want a new runway, I'm backtracking. Let's go for Heathrow hub. I don't think Heathrow hub is out of it yet.
We should explain that because the choice, there are two choices at Heathrow, two possible variations, and they are the northwest runway option, which he's gone for in the report. It seems to be his primary choice. And then you say the hub. Explain the hub variation.
The hub is, I would call, the western extension of the existing northern runway for about 3,000 meters, which means you have two runways on one. It's never been attempted before, and had it not been as a figurehead, Jock Lowe, former flight operations director for Concorde and a former member of the British Airways Executive Board, most people would have thrown it out. But Jock is a very, very good campaigner, and I think that at the end of the day, it might happen that idea would be the one that happens. It means that the Prime Minister doesn't have to say there's a new runway. He's just extending an existing runway. It's a compromise.
I mean, the point is that after the what's it been? It's been 3 years, I think, of the Airport Commission.
I would like to interrupt you and say that it's been 50 years.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. We've been talking about the need for and what we should do about a third runway, or at least another runway, in the southeast for some 50 years. It is getting frankly ridiculous, and I think all of us would just wish they'd get on with it. But then the most recent manifestation of politicians kicking this awkward football into the turf has been the Davies Commission, Airports Commission, and they've been studying this business for 3 years now. And ultimately, what he's done is he's plumped quite firmly for one option, but he hasn't actually ruled out others. I mean, he's not closed the door on Gatwick, for example.
No, he's made that very clear. No on Stansted, but that won't happen in our lifetime. It's very interesting. I've done some research for Business Travel News, which we're going to publish on Monday, which shows now that London is leaping ahead in terms of world access. Well, up to 140 million plus passengers in the 12 months to the end of March. And the other thing is that we're now representing 60% of all international traffic or traffic out of UK airports. But actually, London is dominating the scene. So we must get on with this. This is the one thing that everybody agrees. These people that objected have been objecting all the time, and they've come up with all sorts of glorious stories about emissions and fog and I don't know what. But I can remember as a small boy thick fog in London. I could not go to school. This was in the 1950s. Thank God we've got that pollution behind us. And we've also got we don't have the pollution that you see in Beijing and many other cities. In Los Angeles, for instance, it can be terrible. So I think providing we can keep this under control, and what I really knew all along, knowing Sir Howard and having met him quite a few times now, he's a very sharp guy, and he was going to really pull a rabbit out of the hat. It's been done before with airports, banning helicopters, for instance. What he's done, he said, hang on, it's a 6 o'clock curfew. Forget about the 4:30 approaches. We're going to go for 6 o'clock. If you lot want a 6 o'clock curfew, fine, but let us get on with the new runway, and it's a wonderful move.
It is a very smart move because it's slightly shocked a few airlines, stopped them in their tracks. As you say, at the moment, the curfew on night flying has steadily over the years has been chipped away at the edges, and we're now receiving flights into Heathrow. It's for something or other from Japan, I think, isn't it, or Taiwan or somewhere?
Japan, but anyhow, from wherever it is, it's supposed to be a 5 o'clock curfew, but okay, it's 4:45. I've landed at 4:40, I think, from Shanghai. These things are flexible, and the airports at the other end are mostly 24-hour operations. So they don't have the problem. If they want to come to London, they're just going to have to come to London that bit later. It means more flights, but we have a third runway, and that's the incentive. If you people want the noise to be reduced at night, not before 6 o'clock, please let us have our extra runway.
It makes a lot of sense. The other factor in here as well is freight. I hadn't realised it until I was listening to somebody this morning talking about the amount of freight that's shipped, because everybody forgets that that there they are knocking back their free wine or paid for wine upstairs, but underneath them there are crates and crates of freight, and apparently something like 40% of Britain's exports go out through in the bellies of aircraft, not just cargo liners, but airliners as well.
Absolutely true. Two things here. First of all, the freight aircraft operate through the night. Not many of them, but they do, and those will presumably be banned. The other thing is Heathrow. Heathrow is 77% of all our air freight. Much as they like to even use Stansted, which BA even uses, and Qatar now uses as well, 77% goes through Heathrow. Also in the bellies of the normal normal passenger aircraft.
We say that Gatwick hasn't been completely ruled out, but has he ruled anything out? I mean, Boris's famous island airport, and Norfolk was another one.
Right. As far as Boris's airport, that's been utterly and completely ruled out twice at the taxpayers' expense. It was ruled out first. Boris used his manipulative powers, I think it's the only word to use, to get it. To have another look at it, and it was completely and utterly ruled out. Boris is a bit of a one-man band. He's done the same at London City Airport, which has been approved both by the number of movements and by the local planning authority. Everybody wants it, but Boris personally, and that's what we hear from City Hall, Boris personally has stopped it. He's delayed it. He hasn't stopped it. Now, with Norfolk, it's a much more interesting situation. The reports, as I've looked at the part of it, says yes, Norfolk will cause problems, but not until the new runway is in place. And what we're now saying is, let's use Norfolk. It's there, it exists, doesn't cost anything to speak of. Let's, for the next 15 years, get over the problem of the regions of not having access to Heathrow, and let's use Norfolk. And I, for one, will be campaigning very, very strongly over the next 2 or 3 months to get Norfolk underway. We have the serious backing of some airlines. I think at the end of the day, even British Airways, who've been very, very quiet over this whole business, will come to appreciate it. Can I say, as far as British Airways, it seems to be a one-man campaign by Willie Walsh to try and stop the whole thing, because the last thing he wants is more competition. And what's going to happen if you expand the runways is more competition for British Airways.
Yeah, he's got possession of all those slots already.
Walter's got 55% of the slots. He ought to be stripped of some of them. Instead of messing about with this ridiculous schemes that he has with Iberia, which are eventually beginning to work, but after a lot of time, he should really get into the what's good for United Kingdom.
I hear you on Northolt. It's been for me a source of amazement that it hasn't. I mean, we've had this fantastic resource. It's there on the M40. It's only just outside London, just like Heathrow, and it's been used underused as a private aviation centre and also as a government aviation centre, and for years and years and years. In fact, we have a family joke, and all the times we've driven out on the M40 to go and see friends or whatever it might be. The joke is, we have never, ever seen an aeroplane landing or taking off as we go down that little stretch of motorway. So it is, it's ridiculous that it's not used more.
No, it's used. It does have. It is being used a little bit by the Royal Air Force and other military people, but the numbers are tiny compared with yesteryear, when every RAF airfield had a communications flight daily into Norfolk. That doesn't exist. Nor any of the other uses by the military. Even the Queen's Flight now, in order to boost the numbers when it comes in, which is very occasionally, they now call it a military movement to try and push the numbers up. It's also been used by the jet operators, the private jets. What we believe, and which Business Travel News will be vigorously campaigning, is, having read the report, as far as I can see, it says Norfolk is out once the new runway is in position. So what we're saying is, let's use Norfolk, and the quicker we build the new runway, the quicker we can get rid of Norfolk, and we'll move the military out. There should be enough slots in Heathrow for them as well. So there's a double incentive, in what Sir Howard said. A, the night flights, let's get rid of them, and B, let's get rid of Norfolk, but not until the new runway is in position.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just gonna, because I've got it to hand somewhere, I'm just gonna see if I can find the. Yes, here we are. Here's the aerial shot. He said, getting back to my screen and holding it there. Here's the aerial shot of the plans for this third northwest runway that we've been talking about, and that Sir Howard Davies is going for in primary position, and you can see, for people who are not aware of it, these are the two existing runways that we have, north and south at Heathrow already, although they're not exactly designated that because they run east-west. But the third one is what they're calling the northwest option, and it's up here. So this is where it would be built, and you can see this is the M25, I think, here, isn't it, Malcolm? So obviously the M25 would have to go underneath it.
Yeah, it's no great engineering feat. It's a very simple job, and in fact, the picture you have makes it look a little smaller than it is. It's rather like these photos that the national newspapers have of these houses with the 747 sitting on top of them. They're not actually sitting on top of them. It's the way the photographer has aligned himself. There's about a mile between the aircraft and the houses, but the Guardian in particular loves to put that picture up.
We were talking a week or so back about a rather interesting piece that I'd actually found in Conservative Home, which is not a place I would normally visit, but it's I thought, I don't know how I came across it now, but it was a piece written about the aviation expansion in the southeast and the perils of going for Gatwick. It was by Adrian Pepper. But the thing that really struck me was he spoke about how he had the chance to canvass residents in constituencies around both Heathrow and Gatwick, and he was pointing out that actually there's a very vocal opposition to expansion at both of those airports. But in fact, when you talk to the residents, for most of them, it's, first of all, politically, it's not their number one issue. But secondly, an awful lot of them actually support the idea of an extra runway, not least because of the jobs and things like that. So and others are not bothered about it. So it gave a very different perspective that I was quite surprised by and hadn't really thought of.
Yeah, it's perfectly true that those opposed to the airport are very smart, very small numbers. I think Heathrow thinks there's 37 people who are really working at it, but the newspapers will say a large number. We just don't know. And there was the case of the the noise, which I think I said once before, when the clocks changed and these automatic people who were responding and saying lots of noise were actually complaining when the aircraft were not flying because they'd forgotten to change their times. And then you have Boris, dear old Boris, who wants to be bulldozed over. I leave that to your imagination.
Yeah.
But that would be another by-election if he was bulldozed over. So.
And Zach Goldsmith as well. He's
and I mean, there we are, another multi-millionaire conservative who feels that he must promote himself with this, and of course,
who's not here to speak for himself. So we must give him, we must say that he has very strong views, and they're well publicised. And if you're interested, you should go along and read them. And there will be plenty of coverage, won't there, in the next few days about all of this.
Yes, but then of course Parliament goes into recession, so he had to come out before then. They give them a chance to look at it, but we've really got to think about the regions here. The regions presently have 7 flights, 7 services a day in from the provinces. It used to be 20. There are strong rumours that Newcastle, Leeds and Aberdeen will lose their connections because British Airways can use them more profitably. British Airways is only interested, it's not a national airline in the normal sense now, it's only interested in profitability. Nothing wrong with that. So that situation is still with us. And of course, whilst they don't have any political power, and one would argue that really they shouldn't have any financial power, Jersey and Guernsey need to get into London. The Isle of Man needs to get into London. If Willie Walsh has his way and he takes over Aer Lingus, those routes have got to be protected. Certainly the routes into Belfast has to be protected. That's why I think that you'll find by September there's going to be a very interesting outburst, isn't the word, promotion for Norfolk, headed by a person who is held within great respect both nationally and within the airline industry.
Excellent. Okay, we'll look forward to that. Meanwhile, last question for you. When do you think you and I are actually going to take off in an aeroplane from a 3rd runway somewhere in the UK, somewhere in the southeast?
That's a leading question. I think we're going to be very lucky by 2025, by which time I shall be well into my 80s. But I do think that by April of next year, you and I might be on a press trip out of Norfolk, if not before.
That would be excellent. I look forward to that. Malcolm, thank you ever so much for joining me this week. And hopefully we're going to have a crack at talking to you while you're shipbound, or at least Gibraltar bound, I think, in a fortnight, with any luck, if we can sort out the Wi-Fi and that kind of thing. That should be rather fun.
Yeah, I might be available next week if you want to further comments on Heathrow. It all bubbled along, but I can't see anything really positive happening. And then as you say, we'll try and connect you from Gibraltar. That shouldn't be too difficult.
Excellent. All right. Look forward to it. Good to talk to you again. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Back again, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.